simple risk evaluation method. And over here, when you evaluate risk, okay, we have the principles of risk management. The core principle is open communication, so that everyone knows what is happening and what risks are involved. You can't protect, so to say, people from risk by not telling them about it. That's one of the worst things you can do. People need to know what risks are present so that they will be on board in avoiding them, reducing them, or mitigating them. And they should consent, they should give permission, they should be in a position to say, I am okay with taking these risks. You can't decide for others that they will be okay with accepting a risk, which they are not even aware of. Sustaining principles include integrated management of risks, so you have everyone on board, okay? You have teamwork, and it is a continuous process. And it is forward-looking, you need to take a global perspective, and it is a shared product or service, okay? Now we speak about the impact and probability, or probability and severity, all right? Over here, risk estimation is done by multiplying probability and the impact or severity. So probability is what probability exists for that thing to happen, whilst the impact is the consequence, the result of what would happen if it had to happen. So many people are afraid of flying in planes because, statistically speaking, you have a greater risk of dying when using the road, whether you're a pedestrian or you're driving a car or a motorcycle. There is a greater chance of you dying when using the road rather than when using a plane. How do we know that? We know that because we know the total number of people using cars or the road, and we know the number of deaths caused in a road. So let's say 1 in 100,000. However, we also know the number of people using planes and the number of people dying from planes, like crashes and accidents, and we can calculate the number of people dying from planes. Now that would be 1 in 10 million, okay? So if you compare, for example, you have 100 times more chance of dying on the road than on planes. But why are people afraid, therefore? Don't they know the statistic? It could be that they don't. The 1 in 100 is just an example. I don't know the real statistics, but I know that it is less. It could be that they don't know, and it could also be because people consider that flying in planes is something extra. Okay, you don't fly on a plane to go to work every day, but you need to get in a car or a bus to go to work every day. It may also be the example of people having watched dramatic scenes in a movie of people dying in an air crash, so that would have left a bigger impact on their psyche. Okay, so let's speak about probability. What are the chances? What is the probability of us being injured, God forbid, or dying, God forbid, in an accident? You have greater probability of being injured or dying on the road in a car accident than in a plane accident, in an airplane accident. So let's hope none of that happens to none of us. However, we can see an example of probability. Now, the impact, the severity, is something different. So first we deal with probability, the chances of it happening. And then we say, if it had to happen, what would be the result? What would be the impact? What would be the severity? How severe would it be? Okay. Now, when you crash with your car, and hopefully you don't, if you crash with your car, you need not be injured. It could be a minor crash, like a bumper-to-bumper collision. You would still have been involved in an accident officially, but you would have zero impact, okay, on your body, and then you would need to replace your bumper. Now, the severity, therefore, the impact is low. Now, if you crash with your plane, you don't crash bumper to bumper, you probably die. And let's hope it doesn't happen to any of us, the impact, the severity, the impact will be much, much bigger. So although with car crashes, with car accidents on the road, the probability is higher than aeroplane accidents, the impact, generally speaking, is less than when you crash with your plane. You don't get bumper-to-bumper collisions with a plane. And generally, airplane collisions or airplane crashes result in everyone on board dying, generally. Now, it should be clear to you right now what is the difference between probability and impact. Now, when you estimate risk, a simple risk estimation involves multiplying these two things. So we give a value. Over here it is 1 to 4 and 1 to 3. We give a value to how probable it is for this thing to happen. 3 is high, so very likely. 2 is probable, and 1 is improbable. Okay? And then you give a value to impact, decreasing impact. You have 4, unacceptable. Unacceptable, it would be unacceptable that this impact happens, like death. Undesirable, so you wouldn't like it. Acceptable, but with review, we need to do something about it. And acceptable without review. We need to accept it and there is nothing to do about it. So as you can see, it goes 4, 3, 2, 1, and 3, 2, 1. Now I can imagine some of you asking, why aren't they both 1 to 4 and 1 to 4? You could have it 1 to 4, you could have it 1 to 3, you could have it 1 to 10, you could have it 1 to 5, it depends. Generally speaking, 1 to 3 is the simplest, 1 to 10 is the most detailed. You don't need that much detail. So 1 is to 3 or 1 to 4, that will be fine. So they can be both 1 to 4 or both 1 to 3. Okay? Now when you multiply, you have 1 times 1, which is 1. And over here, you would have 1 by 2, which is 2. And this would also be 2 because it is 1 by 2. And you continue multiplying. So 1 by 3 is 3. And over here, 1 by 3 is 3. And this one would be 1 by 4. That is 4. Okay? And you continue so on and so forth. I will send you an Excel sheet of how you can print this out. Now, when something, let's go back to health and social care rather than aviation. When, for example, you walk into a service and you notice there are electrical sockets that are open with wires showing, and you know that it shouldn't be like that, especially if there are vulnerable service users like children in the vicinity. The probability and impact would probably result in a high number, and that is unacceptable. That is more unacceptable. So the simple risk estimation will be more towards the high when compared to, for example, the risk of not having updated policies and procedures. We should have updated policies and procedures, but when you compare both risks, that is policies and procedures that are not updated and electrical sockets with wires showing, which of those has got the highest risk? Electrical sockets with wires showing. Why? Because the impact will be so severe that it could result in death, and that is unacceptable, totally unacceptable. Whilst policies and procedures that are not updated also pose a risk because it could lead to bad practice, and it could lead to the organization being sued for not following the latest regulatory standards, for example. However, it might not necessarily lead us to someone dying out of such sheer negligence. Okay? So in this case, we have compiled a simple risk estimation, and you need to eventually be able to do something like this. I will send you an Excel sheet, as I said, with an example of a simple risk estimation in health and social care. Okay, just like I have given you. Okay, I think that should be it. Over here, we have the same thing when it relates to risk control. So we'll conclude with this thing here. you have the same table with low, medium, and high. And when you have risk control, you try to reduce the risk. So from high to medium, from medium to low, okay? By avoiding, reducing, or mitigating the risk.